I have the feeling that a lot of poker players think once they win big or once they made it, they won't tilt anymore.
One thing I've learned kind of relatedly over the years is just that poker is continually an active process where like even the best player in the world always needs to be constantly like working on his game and improving.
Tilt under the radar in live poker because they think like other people see me. I'm still angry, I'm still tilted, but it's not visible.
True.
Before we start with the podcast, I want to remind you that I released my brand new course about tilt and how to get rid of it within just 3 days. If you suffer from tilt, I highly recommend you clicking the link down below in the description to learn more. And now, let's jump into the video.
Brian, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. We have some amazing topics to talk about. But first of all, can you introduce yourself very quickly for the people who don't know you yet?
So my name is Brian Hastings. I'm a 35-year-old poker player. I've been playing poker professionally since I was a teenager, basically. Got into it as many did during the poker boom right after Moneymaker winning the WSOP and WPT on the Travel Channel being a big thing in America. Started out playing online on Ultimate Bet. Rose up to high stakes pretty fast. Was by my 18th birthday, I was already playing like the biggest games on there, and then made accounts on the other sites and started doing some of that. And then as time has gone along, you know, Black Friday in 2011, big one for all of us. Things changed, and I do still play a bunch of online today, but also play a lot more live poker than I did in my early days. And now I have a family too, so that's also new interesting dynamic to balance as well.
Cool. And I also saw you're a coach for Run It Once, right?
I'm a coach for Run It Once also. I guess I should also just note some accomplishments. Yeah, so I guess I'm best known for having the largest online single day win, which was 4.2 million playing heads up PLO against Victor Blum, aka Isildur 1. That was in 2009, so a long time ago. And yeah, and live, I've had a lot of success at the World Series of Poker. I have 6 bracelets there. Most of them are in mixed games. One was actually in Heads Up No Limit, which is hard to believe now, but...
And that's also, by the way, the reason why I got in touch with you, because I think we have a lot of people in common that we know or we're friends with. And I'm in touch with some of the guys from Run It Once. Some of them I know really well. And since you're a coach from Run It Once, I knew that you're someone people can learn from or people can see maybe some sort as a role model. I'm sure people would like to change the 4.2 million win with you, right?
Well, that would be a tough one to do these days. I mean, there's not too much heads up action that even happens. I mean, yeah, it's hard to really think, you know, if you're a poker player who just got into it in the last few years, it's hard to really describe what that was like back then. Like, you know, there were just rig battling heads up all the time. Like this just happened. I mean, there were a lot of like soft heads up spots too, but just these big heads up matches kind of went often. I mean, yeah, nowadays, occasionally you'll get something like the Galfond Challenge where, you know, Phil took on a bunch of really tough players that heads up PLO. That's cool. But yeah, as far as just like completely unscripted, just, you know, people logging on, battling, just not too much of that these days.
Yeah, I heard we had crazy times in the poker scene many years ago. But let's talk about something that a lot of poker players deal with, and I think might be extremely interesting for the people who watch, which is the topic of tilt. The first question to start this topic off would be, how often do you deal with tilt, or do you have people who play also high stakes maybe that you know tilt very hard?
I think everybody deals with tilt to some extent. I mean, I think we all kind of deal with like the frustration when things aren't going our way at the tables. And I think, you know, a big part of the battle in poker is just trying to channel that and deal with it the best we can and just try to let us affect us as little as possible. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly plenty of times where I'm playing a session and I'm annoyed at how things are going, whether it's a bad beat, or personally I get more upset about if I make what I think is a bad play. And then especially if it doesn't work out, but even just if I make a decision and then I immediately think I messed up, that bothers me more than anything, I think. Also disconnect issues, that's a really tilting thing. Like
I know.
The internet cuts out, that's a tough one. I mean, I think tilt is definitely just something that's going to happen, but I think, you know, we can kind of work on making it affect our play and affect us as little as possible. That's the goal.
How do you deal with tilt?
I try to, in general, have a very process-oriented approach. So I try to more focus my energy on, yeah, like, am I making good decisions? Am I playing well? Am I focusing? Am I sharp? Rather than how much am I up or down? Granted, this is easier said than done. I mean, I'm not saying I never, you know, check the the tracker as I'm going, but like, it's always a battle for all of us. But in general, I try to focus my approach on just process. So like, you know, if I'm doing the things I want to be doing and just really focusing in, making good decisions. I feel prepared. I mean, I think bankroll management is huge in this aspect too. Like if you're taking shots above your bankroll, it's much easier to tilt when things are going poorly. Yeah, I think just basically setting yourself up for success. So when a frustrating situation happens, you can allow it to have a minimal effect on you.
I think it's very interesting what you just said, because I have the feeling that a lot of poker players think once they win big or once they made it, right, they won't tilt anymore. And I think there's a very big misconception of like, as long as I'm a micro stakes player or low stakes player, it's okay to tilt because maybe my friends tilt or everyone at this level tilts. But when I like cross the magic line of playing mid stakes to high stakes, then the tilt will disappear. But of course, that's not the case. So tilt will always be there. And that's why I really like what you just said, that as long as you play poker, tilt will be there. So as soon as you learn how to control it, that is basically when you see this jump in usually stakes, but also in progression, I would say.
One thing I've learned kind of relatedly over the years is just that poker is just continually an active process where, like, you know, even the best player in the world always needs to be constantly like working on his game and improving. There's no spot where you just get there and you're like, okay, there's nothing else I need to learn. I don't have, now I can just, you know, put in volume and not worry about like putting in work and getting better. That's just not the case. And same thing with tilt. I mean, these situations are just going to come up, and it's just a constant process to be working on how you manage them and just setting yourself up so they affect you as little as possible. Yeah, there's certainly not a such thing as a poker player who just gets to a level where tilt isn't a factor anymore. That's
the only difference is that the higher you play, the more effect or the more it hurts when you tilt because you lose more money, right?
Yeah, and again, yeah, back to the bankroll management thing. If you're taking a shot, you know, everybody's situation is different. Dan Bilzerian or someone, it probably doesn't matter, you know, if he loses the buy-in in whatever game. But basically, if you're playing a game that's like high for what you're rolled for, or what you're comfortable with, and then it goes poorly, like that, yeah, it's like an obvious situation where it's very easy to tilt. So yeah, I mean, one way to, I mean, just controlling that by like staying to more disciplined bankroll management strategy is in general good, I think. I mean, yeah, there are spots for taking shots, and I've certainly taken my fair share over the years. But I think, again, just being honest with yourself going into that. I know Phil Gelfand's talked about that too. Like about, I think there was one time when in his early days where he sat down at like 60K no limit with 10 buy-ins, I think, and you know, lost like 2 or 3 of them or something. But he was like mentally prepared to do that, and then be like, okay, well, if I lose, I'll just drop down and rebuild. And I guess having a plan if you're, you know, if you are going to take a bigger bankroll shot, so knowing that, like, you know, some of the time it is going to go poorly, and you just have to be okay with that.
How do you manage your bankroll ideally, or do you have any tips for people who are watching?
Well, certainly, again, having a family these days, I've definitely gotten a lot more conservative with it too. And just like, if there's like a bigger live tournament I want to play and I feel a little underrolled for that, just selling the action that I should sell and stuff like that. Also, another thing I saw from Phil recently also was just talking about like dropping down in stakes during a downswing. And I thought that was really sharp, because during a downswing, there can just be easily all kinds of subtle tilt that you're not necessarily in tune with, but you know, just the fact that things aren't going well can cause you to like unknowingly be playing a little bit worse, and dropping down in stakes can kind of either, you know, stop that, and also, you know, that's the fact that you're playing in softer games can help you kind of get back on track. So I think I've subscribed more to stuff like that now than I did when I was like in my early 20s and didn't have a family. So
yeah, that's true. There's so many different forms of tilt, and as you said correctly, sometimes we're not even fully aware of the different types of tilt that affect us at the moment, right? It's really important to be aware. And what I would recommend people who deal with a downswing or have problems to like move up in stakes, or sometimes family life comes into play, I think it's a good idea to not have the ego in your way to move down in stakes, play there for a while, make sure that you're back on track, that you're back to 100%, and then move back to your normal stakes and then crush there.
Everybody's situation is different in terms of like how much risk taking I want to do. But one thing I would definitely recommend is like taking a look at like variance simulators. There's this website, primedope.com, that I've used at times in the past. And so you can basically plug in like what your estimated win rate is, what type of game you're playing, whether it's cash game or six-handed heads up, sit and go, multi-table tournament, whatever, and then get an idea of like what like different runs of variance can look like. At least for me, that kind of thing is good to help either mentally prepare, and also come on a downswing, just like a little bit of a sanity check. check, like, okay, like this doesn't necessarily mean that I'm terrible now. It's just, this stuff happens and we just have to be ready to deal with it sometimes.
For sure, yeah. Like the variance calculators can also help a lot, but you have to be honest with the win rate. Yeah, some people they struggle to figure out their exact win
Very
rate.
easy to exaggerate win rate on those. Yes.
Yeah, I remember there were many times when I sent some sort of variance calculator to my clients. I'm like, hey, play around with this a little bit, and they're like, can you tell me what my win rate is? Right? I'm like, you should know, right? Not me. Yeah, but we can figure it out together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my recommendation there would just be to like kind of try to do like a guess what yours is, and then do like a conservative like lower bound estimate and like a higher bound, and just run like 3 different options with all those just to
exactly. That's also what I'm doing. Yeah, that's also what I'm doing. If someone is not sure about the win rate, we figure it out with the worst case scenario, best case scenario, and also the different stakes. Yeah, so. Basically,
yeah, that's the other tricky thing too, is especially if you're like a tournament player and you're like bouncing around all kinds of stakes, basically like sometimes playing like a $30 online tournament, sometimes playing a 10K live tournament, like it can be tricky.
Let's go back to something you said before, which is playing live poker, because I think live poker is extremely interesting. And I see a lot of my clients want to play more live. It's also a lot of times connected to traveling to beautiful places. So I understand why it's very motivating to go to these live tournaments. But when we talk about tilt in live poker, for yourself, do you see a difference between you tilting online and you tilting in live poker, or is it the same for you?
I definitely think there's a difference. I think the one thing that can be a struggle for me live is just that the pace of play is so slow. So like if things aren't going your way, like say you lose a big pot, you might not have an opportunity to really like get it back. I mean, you might not have it all day, like you might not have it tomorrow. So it can be tough mentally to like deal with that. Like you just still have to approach it again, process. Like I'm going to play my best every hand. I'm going to try to make the best decision I can every spot. Also have to mentally deal with the fact that like, yeah, this, I got unlucky in this big pot right before this. And like, yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do anything about that today. And that can be challenging for sure. Yeah. Whereas online, if you're playing multi-tabling stuff, like usually you'll have plenty of opportunities to like get it back.
My experience about this is also extremely interesting because first of all, I'm a poker player myself. So I also had different situations. And also for me, I think I would describe tilt online and tilt in live poker differently. But the most interesting input I usually get from my clients. And it's extremely fascinating because for most people, they feel different in terms of like how they tilt. But it's very different from how they tilt as well. In terms of some people, they tilt under the radar in live poker because they think like other people see me. So I have to like, I'm still angry, I'm still tilted, but it's not visible. True. Yeah. But for other people, it might be different online because they're like, okay, no one is seeing me. So why should I be angry? Yeah. So I will keep the emotions to myself. So it's very different. I also have people who in live poker, they cannot like control it and it's very visible. Of course, we work on that. But I think it's very individual of how you experience tilt. So it's not so easy to say tilt is the same for everyone. And that's why I think it's also very hard to really watch a YouTube video and figure out, okay, that's how I stop tilt. You really have to understand where your tilt is coming from. What do you do when you, let's say you tilt and you're card dead? You cannot really fight back or make the chips back that you lost. What is your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I just try my best to just dial in my focus on like, I'm just like the process stuff. Like, I'm going to continue to just play every hand in every street, the best I can. Just try to make the best decisions I can. And then that's all I have control over. So I'm just going to do that. And then if I do that, the results I don't have so much control over on it, certainly on a single day of live poker. So just going to try to derive, happiness and satisfaction from knowing that I'm playing well and that in the long run, this will pay off.
Since you play a lot of live poker, do you have any kind of crazy story from the casino or from something you heard that someone is completely freaking out or tilted when playing live poker? I'm sure you have a story to share.
Well, I guess one just random funny thing. I recently moved to Los Angeles, and so I played a few tournaments recently at the Bicycle Casino here. And I guess I noticed this is a thing here, but occasionally, someone will. Well, I guess this is actually when someone wins a hand, but it's usually some recreational player, and then they'll be like, yeah, like just let out like a big like thing, and then the whole room will get up and start clapping for them. So I just
that's really tilting sometimes. Yeah,
but that is mock celebrating a win, so not a little bit different than the tilt thing, but yeah, as far as tilt. I mean, the first thing that's popping in my mind is just the Daniel Negreanu selfie stick thing from last year. But but as far as stuff I've seen, yeah, I mean, certain, especially like recreational players can get like pretty, just openly tilted and just, just start blaming dealers, like, asking for a wash, like just like, yeah, I mean, that stuff's always just like super ridiculous. And I mean, funny is, so long as the dealer's not really taking it too badly, I'd say. Like, yeah, obviously I don't think it's good when people are doing that, but I just think the fact that these people get like so upset and just have like so little control is like amusing in a way. People really like take it personally. Like, if someone puts a bad beat on them, like they'll just get mad at that person and like want revenge. Like, that's funny.
The revenge tilt stuff is also very interesting when people want to fight back, or when people take things like when they lose a hand, they take it so personal that they want to fight back, and then they start shouting, or when the dealer doesn't give them good hands and then they start to like blame the dealer for it, as you said. I also saw and heard many different stories from people tilting. What would be your number one tip? That would be my last question here about this tilt topic. Your number one tip for someone who tilts and someone who wants to get rid of it, no matter if it's online or in live poker?
That's a tough one, because like you said, it's like, tilt isn't like a one size fits all thing. It's like kind of different in every person, I think. But I think the process-oriented approach that I talk about really helps a lot. Just having an understanding that, like, the result of one hand or one day of poker is largely out of your control. And yeah, if you just focus on, what you can do to make it tilt the odds in your favor as best possible, that's just a healthier way to approach it. And yeah, I think better for emotional control as well. I think the bankroll management one's a big one too, because I think, yeah, just playing it above one's like comfort level and then having it go poorly is just like such an easy way to lead the tilt. Basically, it's almost like an auto tilt situation, I would say. So yeah, just not doing that in the first place is a huge way to help. Yeah, I think even just doing like mentally preparing in certain ways, like whatever that looks like for you, whether it's, meditating a little bit before playing, or some yoga, some physical exercise, and just generally having other things outside of poker. Like, I think if someone's too like consumed with poker and it's like, waking up and just logging on and just kind of thinking about poker all day, every day, if it's like your one thing, it's a lot easier to like kind of lose emotional control. I think I've had some times in my life where it's kind of been my one thing, so I can relate. But yeah, I think for me, like having a family now and being like, okay, well, if poker's not going well this day, I can take a break and go hang out with my daughter, and like that's pretty cool. Or whatever that is for you, going out playing sports or going out with some friends, just something else that's not just consumed by poker.
My top three, if you would ask me, so I agree with what you said 100%. From my perspective, I would say the top three are definitely, as you said, a good warm-up routine. Because what a lot of poker players don't understand is that we take our emotions to the poker table. And usually the poker table is an amplifier. So yeah, I give you an example. You have a phone call with your best friend and you have a fight. If you play poker, it's probably not the best decision. You have to make sure that you reset your emotions. That could be with a good pre-session routine, or sometimes just time, as you said, right? If you play with your daughter, after 1-2 hours, maybe the aggression is gone, or, maybe you sort it out within that time, and then you can poker freely. But if someone comes to me and says, hey, this was a real situation. I was giving a free seminar for a poker school, and there was one person asking me, Karim, can you help me? What's your number one tip? Where I was a big Sunday, it was one of the biggest Sundays in terms of buy-in. And before that Sunday, I had a huge fight with my girlfriend. We nearly broke up. We had a huge fight. And I still decided to play poker, and I tilted so hard, I basically bricked nearly every tournament. What can improve next time? That was the question. I said, don't play, right? Yeah, sort it out. I agree. Don't play. There's nothing I can do, right? There's nothing I can do, and probably also nothing that you can do other than sort it out and skip the Sunday. But I think a lot of
had that come up. Like, I mean, it wasn't like a big Sunday or anything, but like, yeah, there was a day recently where I just like, was like got in an argument with my wife, and yeah, I just realized, I like quickly like just realized, like, yeah, like if I try to like play poker like now, it's just not, I'm not gonna be able to play my A game. Probably not gonna be able to play my B game. So yeah, I just did other stuff and eventually sorted it out and just waited till later. So
yeah, I think a lot of poker players have that big conception of like, all right, it's a Sunday, and no matter what happens, I have to play. Yeah,
I get pretty amped to play on Sundays. I mean, I get it, but yeah, in that particular situation, I think he's gotta not do it.
Yeah, I think so too. There's some conception to it. So pre-session, the warm-up basically, or that the poker table is an amplifier, that would be one thing. The second thing is definitely bankroll management and understanding the variance. Because one of the first questions I ask my clients when they start to work with me is, how would you define variance, right? And then the person says, yeah, so variance means sometimes I play a hand and I can win this hand or I can lose the hand, right? And I'm like, okay, that's maybe not so 100% accurate, right? But then we talk about it. And I give you like the best example I usually like to give clients to really make it easy to understand is the coin flip, because the brain has a very easy time to understand a 50-50 chance. Coin flip is quite simple. You win or you don't. But it's quite hard for the brain to understand what is like 27.35% to win. That's a little bit more tricky. So with the coin flip, what I like to do with my clients is I say, okay, if I flip the coin 1 million times, we probably will be break even or close to it. I said and I asked them, do you agree or not? He said, yeah, I agree. I said, okay, but what if I flip the coin just 5 times? Yeah, maybe you win 5 times, maybe I lose 5 times, right? I'm like, exactly. And that's the case, right? We have the same chance of winning, like it's 50-50 all the time, but with just flipping it 5 times, there might be a different end result than flipping it 1 million times. And then based on that, we start to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think with that simple explanation, it's quite simple for people to get the foot in the door about variance. And then based on that, we build on bankroll management, of course, as well. The pre-session bankroll management. And the third thing I would say is to really understand what triggers people, or I call this tilt profile. So one of the things that I do with my clients is that we create a tilt profile to really understand what happens when you tilt, how does your body react, what do you think, which situations do you tilt in the most? For you, it's you said when you make a mistake. And the second thing, what was the second thing? When the site
internet disconnect issues,
definitely. Disconnect, exactly. when you have a disconnect, so that will be the first steps for you to create your tilt profile. And based on that tilt profile, we then can understand in which situations we need to focus more on, as you said, right? Process and other aspects. So I think that will be the top 3 tips that I would give my clients. Anything you want to share before we wrap it up?
Just to summarize again, tilt is something that every poker player still has to deal with for their whole careers and whole time playing poker. It doesn't just go away. You don't suddenly just have things go poorly for you and be completely fine with it, but you actively work on building strategies to help you be mostly fine with it and make it affect you as little as possible.
Yeah, 100% agree. With that being said, thank you, Brian, for taking the time today. I will also link down below your Instagram profile in the description. You find all the links down below. You can get in touch with Brian and ask him more questions about the podcast and of course about his coaching.
Thank you for watching the podcast. If you liked the video and you want to learn more about Tilt, then I highly recommend you clicking the link down below in the description to get access to my brand new Tilt Buster course in which I explain how to get rid of Tilt within just 3 days. See you there.